What's up, everybody, and welcome back. Welcome back to the Bridging the Gap podcast. I hope you're all well. I'm absolutely fantastic. Thank you for asking. And we're here, and we're drinking. Today we've got a Grenade Energy Cherry Bomb. Shout out to Courtney Bruce for introducing the Bridgman Price household to Cherry Bomb Grenade Energy. So, you know what's nice about these cans is that they're 330ml as opposed to like half a litre, 500ml, because 500ml is a lot. Like sometimes I get to the end of a Monster, I'm already shaking from the caffeine, and I'm like, I don't know if I can do if I can do the rest of this like 200ml that I've got left. So 330ml. It's a very strong taste. It's very, very flavorful cherry. And today, I wanted to just kind of talk about just a few random things, to be honest. I didn't really have any structure. I just kind of wanted to throw a podcast up and just catch up a little bit and see what's going on in the world and just talk a bit about this and a little bit about that. So first up, how I'm feeling. I'm fucking heavy, lad. I'm fucking heavy. Do as I say, not as I do. Jesus, I'm like 107. Like, granted, 97 kilos, I was pretty much fat free, and then it was just about getting myself flat and dry. So I put on about 10 kilos. That's 22 pounds in 16 days. I really, really, really am struggling with food focus for some reason. Like, I'm still craving that feeling of being full, and quite often I'm trying to like have a small breakfast and then just go train, or even no breakfast and then just go train. Try and get to like 1 o'clock. Have like a medium to, well, I'd actually just have a normal post-workout meal. And then I try and wait as long as I can, and then I just fucking order something and I just eat loads and loads and loads of food. I've pretty much had, out of the 16 days or 17 days it's been post show. Granted, like four or five of them, like should have been like whatever. Who gives a fuck? You're a pro now, bitch. But the subsequent 10, like it's just been a battle, and like I want it to be real with you guys. Like it is very, very difficult, no matter what level. I just got my goddamn pro card. That's a high level. I can now say that, which is crazy to say. And it's still extremely, extremely hard. Like I think one thing that's going for me is like I've been active. I've washed off my fatigue. I feel really, really good. Like my joints are feeling better. The quicker ester drugs like Winstrol and Anavar out my system, and every single day, mentally I'm feeling better and better and better. So I'm kind of pushing a little bit harder. The hunger is coming down. Like it's been like 10 out of 10. I just want to keep binging and eating. I shouldn't say binge. I just want to keep eating and eating and eating until I just can't. And I've probably let myself do that. Like once or twice. Like as in just like, all right, fuck this. I'm in. I'm going to keep going. And one time I just had a whole packet of Hobnobs. I literally just had one. I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to have the whole thing. Then I'm going to have a big bowl of cereal. I made 2 bowls of cereal in the end. And I just kept eating until I was like, yeah, all right, not hungry anymore. And I went to bed and just had the worst night's sleep. So I've probably done that once or twice. The rest of it's been like, let's just hit a spot. Like last night, I'm like, you know what? I haven't had Thai for a little bit. So I was like, okay, let's like, I don't like get like loads of curries and loads of deep fried food. Like I just try and get like, I try. Like for example, I justify lunch getting Turkish because I'm like, yeah, okay, it's grilled meat and rice. And I'm like, okay, it is, but it's also in oil. But it's not a big deal. Like stuff like that is not a big deal because that's quite sustainable for the long term, especially as you get further into your off season. And then like in the evening, I'm like, okay, now I need something dirty. Like I had a fucking Domino's on Monday, and I'm like, cool, I need to get a Thai Tuesday. Like what's going on with me? Like why are you doing that? But I'm just like scratching itches that haven't been itched for so long, and I'm not controlling it properly. I'm not taking ownership of what I'm doing, and it's quite I'm finding it hard to take ownership, actually. I know it's going to be fine. Like, I still look pretty good. Like, I've still got veins in my abs. Granted, guys, like, for the first 3 weeks post-competition, everything I was using in terms of steroids was an enanthate molecule. So, an enanthate ester. So, all of them are going to take at least 4 or 5 weeks to completely clear. Like I was using Trent E, I was using Mast E, Test E, and Primo was an E as well. So like, you know, like for 2 or 3 weeks, like you're going to be really, really anabolic. And then of course you're still going to have some of the Winstrol and the Anavar floating around. A little bit quicker clearance though. So that first week, like I took like 4 or 5 days off anyway, but like that's that first week of training and the second week of training, like you are in a place where you can fucking blow up and maybe reclaim some muscle and maybe fill out some muscle. So I've sort of done that, stayed lean-ish. Like I've definitely accumulated, like there's definitely like of the 10 kilos I've put on, there's probably like 5 or 6 kilos of like pure fat maybe, which is good. Like at least 3 of that should have gone on. The extra bit was probably just like where I shouldn't have eaten too much too long. But like I'm not even saying that's over. Like I don't know what's gonna happen tonight. I'm gonna try and play it cool tonight, or this afternoon. It's a rest day today, so I tend to just I'll just keep busy, really, really busy, and do a lot of work until 12 anyway because there's less food, and I'll try and break it with an egg white something. Or I could walk down the road to the cafe and just have like eggs and avocado and feta and chorizo on some sourdough toast and be like, oh yeah, that's fine, isn't it? Fuck, there it goes again. Anyone who's been addicted to something seriously, like for me, weed was something like that was like that. So I obviously I still smoke now. 2 seconds, guys. I need to open this window in here. Okay. So for me, like, I still smoke it. Like, but when I was in denial about what I just thought about it and how I perceived it, and because it was so demonized, and it is so demonized, like, you feel guilty if you're someone who smokes. Like, you feel guilty because no one else does, and blah 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 blah. We don't need to go into the depths of why I'm content with it now. But when I was in those moments of trying to quit, like, you find every single, because there's no doubt, like, chemically I was addicted to it, and I am probably chemically addicted to it. You find every single reason to just have one more, you know what I mean? So that's a bit like what it was. And I will find a reason to sit down in that cafe, have that meal, be like, cool, maybe I'll have a bit of banana bread because I need some extra carbs. And that's how it spirals out of control, because I can't just order one thing. I don't have that capacity at the moment. But I know that my hunger hormones should kind of level out soon, usually like 3 or 4 weeks. Like I'm coming into my 3rd week now. I do feel better. Like I said, I was at a 10 out of 10 hunger every single fucking day, and I'm probably at an 8 now, or maybe just coming in below an 8 now, because I can control myself in the mornings really, really easily, and even in the afternoons I'm not too bad. It's just the evenings that's quite hard. But when I first started, I was like, I'm out. I'm coming in for everything, all day, morning, lunch, and dinner. I'm coming in. But it is what it is. Like, that's the reality of it. Like, you push yourself to an extreme. Maybe expecting an extreme rebound sometimes. I don't know if I think I probably pushed it a bit harder this time, just because I kind of achieved a huge goal and I wanted to reward myself. So like actually 4 or 5 of those days, maybe even that first week, was completely guilt-free. And it was great. And I was saying that out loud to people, like, even maybe in my story, I was like, it feels great. It's like guilt-free. I fucking earned this. Like, I don't give a shit if I gain like whatever, you know, which is probably why I've gained so much now, because I've had that in the back of my mind, like, whatever, like, I just earned that. I'm just going to wait until I find equilibrium, because to be honest, the last like 4 or 5 days where I've been eating off plan, like, I had loads of food. I had like 5 donuts and Greek and 4 or 5 fucking dishes of Greek and whatever, and Domino's on Monday and Thai. I'm still like in the 107s, and I stopped my thyroid on Sunday as well. So it's like, if you find that equilibrium of like calories in versus calories out, and while I have a lot of fucking calories in the evening, kind of find that equilibrium. So hopefully, hunger's going to start to reduce a little bit, and we'll be in that position when I can add a little bit of structure back. But I'm getting there slowly but surely. Like every day is getting better. The training is keeping me sane. Training is going really, really well. Obviously progressing really well. A lot of focus on. I want to bring that thickness in my lower back up a little bit. I think that I had to dig so hard to get my lower back in, which is just so weird. Having a bit more size there might just keep it a little bit easier to keep on the way back, on the way down. A little bit more to my triceps. I think I got a little bit carried away with the aesthetics of my biceps, like, because I never had them before, and actually, like, when I really concentrated on them for like, I learned them like 6-7 months later, I was like, damn, I can feel these fucking arms under here. And then obviously when I got lean, I was like, Jesus, these biceps look good. So I was like really trying on. You get that thing, when something looks good, you really want to try because you just want it to look better. And I never had biceps before, so I was doing that a lot with biceps. And maybe that led me to neglect triceps. I don't think my triceps are bad, because I'm quite a strong pusher, so they've always been quite decent for me to have. But I want them just gnarly. Like, I look at Joe's arms, and I'm like, some big boys. I'd love that. Like, but we're just gonna see how it goes through this season. Don't want to risk, throwing I wanted to put some into my hamstrings. I was like, but I don't want to risk throwing more to my hamstrings if it's going to take away from the volume that we can put to my upper body if I'm going to go men's physique again, which I probably am. And that's something else that we could talk about. Like, I'm thinking, like, you guys know that I was thinking maybe I'll go classic, and I kind of hinted to it a little bit because I really, really like the classic poses. I really did. But there's a lot that I'm missing in terms of size. Like, if Brandon is getting beat, I mean, he looks epic, but if he's getting beat by size, I know that I'm heavier than him. Like, I think he was 195 pounds, I was 210 or something, so I was like 10-15 pounds heavier than him. But he looks 10-15 pounds heavier than me, like, because of his amazing muscle bellies and his insertions and his genetics are epic, and obviously he's had to work hard to get there as well, which is a testament to that, because the fucking legs on the side, like, I've got big quads and big hamstrings and big glutes, but they don't tie in super aesthetically because I've got quite a long torso. So, like, I just kind of look good in, like, I could do a front double bicep because I can pull my vacuum in and makes my waist look a little bit shorter. Rear shots aren't too bad, because long torso isn't too much of an issue. But when you're doing like side shots, side triceps and stuff, you've got to have that gnarly side shot, and I just don't have that. So I know that I'll probably get beat there. So for me to put on the size that I need to, it's going to take me a long, long time to do, which is fine because I'm in it for the long haul. But when you like that, but I was like ready for that, right? I was like, if I get his pro card, cool. I might even just take a couple years off and come back at 105 kilos and do classic. But I think the thing is, when you win like the biggest, I've said it a few times because I still can't believe it, the biggest like amateur competition that you can do, and you win the overall, and like you kind of really beat people. Like, as I spoke to a few of the judges, and they said, yeah, this was your show, like they said that from the start, and I was just like, because I mean, they put me in the middle, in the overall and in the whatever. They said, boom, you win, like, from the start. So that was crazy to me. It kind of makes you think, like, maybe I've got something in men's physique. And I was kind of going back over the men's physique guys, and I compared myself to Jeremy Bundier and some of the poses and the pictures that I'd got, and I thought, damn. And like, I know that I'm like, Jeremy Bundier is like 5'7", and I know that he'll look a lot fuller, and I know a lot of these guys look a lot fuller and bigger, but if, like, I don't look super stringy for a tall guy, and a lot of tall guys do. And if you can put the tall guy who doesn't look super stringy against the short guy, like, you kind of look so much bigger. And my back was really, really good this year. Like, comparing it to some of the top guys, I mean, some of the top guys are just unreal, and I'm not there yet, but I can see the potential for it. I need to get a little bit leaner, I think. There's definitely still some body fat to come off my back when I get that lean. But having a bigger, thicker, lower back will definitely help do that in the long run. But like when you win that competition, you think, maybe I've got something in men's physique here. So the commitment's there to push this year. We'll probably rest up for the next 4 weeks. By rest up, I mean be on TRT for the next 4 weeks. We'll get blood work done, assess how everything is, probably do another 4 weeks, just looking to improve that blood work. And then if it's still bad, we'll do another 4 weeks. And if it's still bad, we'll do another 4 weeks. And and we'll keep doing that. And if it's not, we'll go into a blast, and then we'll push up, and we'll just try and gain 3 or 4 more kilos. If we could be 100 kilos on stage, fill in those gaps, I think that'll be a very, very good look for next year in the pro leagues. And we'll do that. We'll do the dance on the pro leagues, which would be crazy. It will just be, well, my mum's retired, so she can come. Amy might be able to come. We have to get someone so she can work there, because she has to work every day. But if we were like in Miami or something, or on that East Coast, just staying somewhere in a big Airbnb, that'd be a hell of a trip. Get Andy to come as well, the videographer. That'd be cool. And just document the pro leagues. It'd be mental. So that'd be cool. So anyway, that wrap up that bit. The next thing I wanted to talk about was some things around finance. Yay! Everyone turns it off now. So I don't know, some of you guys might know, or you may have picked up through the podcast over the days and over the months, over the years. I do have like a side interest in finances and being smart with your money. Now, this isn't necessarily financial advice. This isn't going to make you loads of money. This isn't going to do things, but I think like there are some good long-term habits that you can do, that can make you a millionaire later in life, and like you don't have to be earning fuckloads of money for it, which is really, really cool. So first and foremost, there's some things that you need to establish that I think that you should have in place before you go investing into Tesla and like throwing money into stocks and shares and all this type of stuff. The first things first is like always have an emergency fund. Always have enough money to cover what you need to live and breathe, put a roof over your head for at least like 6 to 12 months. Obviously, the longer the better. Well, yeah, ideally the longer the better. If you can get yourself on your feet, and if you think you can get yourself on your feet in 6 months, depending on the scenario, then cool. 12 months for a buffer. So if that's £1,000 a month, then you need £6,000 in your emergency fund, or just a fund that is for emergencies where it all goes to pot and you need to just live. So that's the first thing. So if you haven't got that, then I wouldn't start throwing money into different places. I think you should establish if you've got any debt, then you should probably look to pay that off first. A little bit different if it's a mortgage, a little bit different if that debt is maybe a student loan or like a contract with like a long-term contract with the government or a bank, because they're safer. They're like safer debt, right? You don't like have to pay it like tomorrow. But if it's some other debt, like I don't know, what kind of fucking debt do people even have? Who knows? That you got to pay your phone bill off from last week or something, and it's compounding, or you're overdrawn and you're getting charged £20 a month. Like, pay those off first. The things that are hurting you financially, pay those off first. Don't worry about investing and trying to go to the moon with different fucking coins and shit. It's not worth it. But if you have got all those and you have some money to play with, this is generally what I recommend and what I've consumed over probably the last 3 years. Like, I like to do things for a long time before. Like, I used steroids for 2 years, researched steroids for 4 years before I even coached them. Similarly with finance, I've been in like that space or like learning about it for at least 3 or 4 years, but I'm only start briefly talking about it now. And then you'll see, like, over the months and years, hopefully we can build into something else, and we can maybe just have some UK versions of finance out. But anyway, general recommendations, the younger you are, the more riskier your portfolio can be. Portfolio being where your investments and shares are, or what are you investing into. They just a fancy word, portfolio. So I think you've got to have some safer options that you do that that are going to basically accrue money over a long period of time and compound on each other. For example, a big one that you'll hear is the S&P 500. This is basically the top 500 companies. I'm pretty sure it's the world. And it basically, for the last 100 years, every single year, it's averaged an 8 to 12% gain. So if you put in, £1,000 100 years ago, that would be worth incredible amounts year on year. In fact, should we get a compound? Let's do it. Compound interest calculator. Okay, then should we do it? We'll do it in pounds. Sorry, everyone American. So if you put £1,000 in, and you say you get 8 to 12% interest on that, we'll say 10%, just to keep the numbers easy. And it's 100 years. let's try do a lifetime. No, let's do something realistic. Let's do like 30 years. Let's say we put in £1,000, 10% interest, and it just compounds year on year. And then we put in, let's say we'll put in £100 every single month as well, because that's what we can afford to give. Over a 30-year period, you're going to be, your initial balance starts at £1,000. You put in £36,000 over that 30 years. So our entire investment is £37, and the future investment is going to be worth £250,000. So over 30 years, and that's all you have to do. So if you started when you were 18, by the time you were 48, you'd have £250,000. But of course, you don't put in 1,000, or maybe you do, maybe you do. You don't put in £100 a month, do you? Because you start at £100 a month. But then the next time you go to £200 a month, and if you do £200 a month, you literally double your portfolio. The future investment is going to be worth £471,000. It's crazy, right? So for me at the moment, I'm actually putting in £400 a month into I'm putting £200 into a stocks and shares ISA, which you can put in and take out tax free, up to £20,000 a year. So I put £200 in that because I don't want to fill that right up at the moment because I've got some other things going on. I then also put £200 minimum into the S&P 500, which compounds roughly about 10%. So for me, if I do this for the next 30 years, this is going to be worth 1 million. But of course, as I earn more, I'm going to look to try and double this. So if I can put in, let's say I can put in £1,000 a month, because maybe I'm earning £5,000, and that's after everything's all paid for, or whatever it is. And then I put £1,000 a month in, it's going to be worth 2.2 million. So compound interest is absolutely wild. I mean, even if you have to do it for 20 years, you start at 18 and you want to take some money out of 38, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. So I would recommend starting as early as you can afford it, and then just put in as much as you can afford to put aside, because it does add up over time. And if you can just forget about that money and don't think about it, you're going to be in a very, very good place in 20 to 30 years' time, which is hard, and it's a long time to think about. And a lot of people want to be an overnight millionaire. A lot of people want to have 100x coin. A lot of people want to have Tesla go to the moon. But realistically, that's like winning the lottery, and you should definitely take that risk every now and again, because it's always good to have a punt, because what happens if you win? Fuck it, you did it, But it's also very, very smart to just cover your bases with, maybe something like 50% of what you do is like relatively safe at a young age. And then like you could have like 30 or 40%, 30 or 40% of like maybe slightly riskier ones. Maybe you go into individual stocks, for example, and you go, all right, Tesla's a good company. Like we all know Tesla's a good company. It's probably going to go high. Like I'm going to put some money in there. Like, okay, what else do you like? Oh, I quite like the hemp business or CBD or cannabis. I'm going to put some money there in that sector. You can kind of pick and choose a little bit. And then as you kind of, go up towards that 10, maybe 15%, like those are the risky ones. Like, maybe if you've got £1,000, maybe you take 50 quid or 100 quid, and you have a punt with like, one of these like Doge coins or one of these coins like that, and you have some fun with it, and you don't mind if you lose that £50 because you know that 50% there is relatively safe because it's compounding over X amount of years. And that 30 to 40% is not safe, because some of them can crash. The whole market can crash, companies can implode. But you feel like you've done your market research into some more specific brands. Like that's generally how I work, and I just try and put as much into that 50%, or I just try and take more over years. So for example, in 2020, I probably took £400, no less than that, maybe £200 a month, maybe £300 a month. I would put away somewhere, and £200 of it would go into Help to Buy ISA, and then £100 I would put into maybe Bitcoin or something in 2020, and that was it a month, And then by the end of the year, it was maybe £500. And then this year I've managed to do £800. So now I take £800 every single month, and I put 400 of it, which is 50%, and I put it into like an S&P index, like an index fund like the S&P 500 or like a Vanguard, or I put it into my stocks and shares ISA. Then the other, maybe 200 of it I'll put into stocks, and I'll put into or 250 of it I'll put into stocks like Tesla, Netflix, for example. We go through my portfolio right now. These are some of the people I've got. I've got Airbnb, Palantir, CRISPR, which is like a genetic modification. I've got Coinbase, Farfetch, Neo. I've got Rolls Royce. I've got the ARK Fund, Airbnb, Aurora Cannabis, Netflix, Tesla, Amazon, Microsoft, Google. And then we've got some coins as well. For example, I've got Cardano, I've got Ripple, I've got Ethereum, I've got Bitcoin. So I just like that would be I'd put more into those, or if I find some new company, I will find that and I'll add that to my portfolio. And I'll put like 50 quid here, 50 quid there, but I'll do it every single month. And then they obviously build up over time. And hopefully some of them boom, some of them don't. Like for example, I'm down 45% on Coinbase. I'm down 26% on Airbnb. But then I'm up, 50% on Ripple. I'm up 55% on the S&P 500. So spreading those bets is it's a very, very clever way to do it. And then I'll throw a little bit of money here and there into some shit coins. And has it gone well so far? No, it hasn't. I've lost money. So that's why we don't use it 50%. I don't know if that helps anyone, but that's like generally like my strategy to approach things. There's definitely better ways to do it. There's definitely more ways to do it. And I'm sure like some people who may even be financial advisors are going, you shouldn't even be putting this fucking podcast down. But don't forget things like, if you want to go for that long term, I don't really, pensions and funds like that, or bonds you could look into as well. Like they're relatively safe places to put your money. And obviously, you got the tax benefits with pensions as well. So don't miss those things. But I think like when you're young, doing something like that is so smart. And I wish I did it earlier. Like I literally started in 2019 when I was 27 or 26. But if I'd done this when I was 18, and like, you know what, it doesn't need to be £1,000, it doesn't need to be £100, it needs to be 20 quid. It could be 10. Just like that habit is really, really powerful, because, maybe that 10 goes to 20, then it goes to 40, then it goes to 80. Before you know it, you've got £5,000 in there and you're 22, and going to uni with £5,000 of your own money is like, yeah, nice. And then if you keep that habit, who knows what can happen. So yeah, like I hope that brings some value to people. And we'll finish up on some bodybuilding now. So I wanted to finish with something bodybuilding, because I love a bit of bodybuilding. And I had a lot of new followers recently, so I'm getting a lot of the old questions kind of spark my my memory of the things that I should talk about, because I realize there's always new followers, and people could always do with brushing up on the basics more. So a lot of people have been saying, like, why do you lift so slow? I recently did a video with Matt Does Fitness. You guys will probably see that on Sunday, I think. And like he was saying in his video and explaining why I was going slow, and I thought it's a good time to explain why I train. I'm not going to say slow, with control, and that's all it is. That's all it is. So I'm going to break this down. There are a few phases in a movement that we have names for, right? You have the concentric, which is essentially when the muscle is contracting and shortening. You might see me say short a lot. Short just means, or you might see it on my Instagram or whatever. Short just means the position of the muscle. So is the muscle short? If it's short, like from origin to insertion, then it's it's contracted. And then long, obviously, it's the opposite. Then we've obviously got the eccentric, which is the opposite of that, which is the elongating of the muscle. And the lowering part of the phase. For example, if you're doing a chest press, you contract it up forward, and then if you release it downwards, that is the opposite. Actively lengthening, for example. Then you got the isometric, which is just the middle ground of like when you're just holding tension, like not moving in either way. And now each of these are like muscle action. It's the muscle action essentially, but each of these have different force productions. They have different energy demands. They have actually impact on glucose tolerance, and it's important to understand these from a bodybuilding perspective, because we are looking to generate force, but also be conservative with energy so we can perform later on, but we're also trying to create muscle damage. So for example, concentrics, the force production is the lowest here. So the force production that you need to move is not as high, but you also need a lot of energy. Like it's the hardest part of the movement to press it up, and that makes sense, right? Because you've got to move a weight from A to B. Whereas eccentrically, I'm thinking about a bench press here. If you work concentrically, you press it up. Like you have to do that. But when you're coming down, like the weight's already up there, you're just controlling it down. It's also got the lowest muscle damage, even when it's in the length and range. So even when you're fully stretched out, it has the lowest amount of muscle damage, which for us as bodybuilders means, okay, so there's not much muscle damage there, so why would I do so much of it? Well, you wouldn't, which is why when we do a concentric, we're pressing up hard and fast, because we don't want to spend much time there. If you were to do a really, really slow concentric, well, you're not causing loads of damage, but it's using loads of energy. So you can see why you wouldn't want to necessarily do that for bodybuilding. And then you go to the isometric, modest force production, modest energy expenditure. The muscle doesn't lengthen or shorten. You don't need to spend much time here because there's not much. It doesn't do much difference. It doesn't cause loads of damage, for example. But then you've got the eccentric. Now this is where it gets interesting, because when you're actively lengthening, the force production is higher here. It's actually the highest. So the force that you need to control is higher, which means that there's the most muscle damage. Not only is there the most muscle damage during the eccentric phase of the motion, and remember the eccentric phase is when we're lowering it down. Think about the bench press. You're at the top of the movement, you're coming down. And what do most people do? They say 1, 2, 3, press. 1, 2, 3, press. And the reason why they say that is because there's the most muscle damage when you're lowering it down, but also the energy it takes to lower it down is lower than it takes to push it up. So if you're using less energy, but getting more muscle damage, why wouldn't you want to spend more time there? So that's why we count 3 seconds, because you want to spend more time under that position where you're not using as much energy, but you're damaging more muscle. And that's really, really important to know. So whenever you see me controlling movement, there's a few reasons for it. Mostly it's like for this, right? Because the force production and the energy expenditure and muscle damage. So I literally, I want to press up hard, create a big contraction, and then just lower it down, as slowly and as I control and as I do, for those reasons. But not only that, but being in control and actually slowing the movement down, guess what else it does? It puts you in control. It makes you safe. It makes you allowed to get that shoulder in a safe place if you're doing a bench press, or it lets you get your lower back in a safe place if you're doing a squat. You don't put yourself in a compromised position. If you're just slamming it up and down with really heavy weights, it's difficult, and it puts a lot of stress on the body, and it increases your injury risk. But in contrast to that, if you think about a powerlifter, like their goal is to just lift the most amount of weight with the least amount of that muscle damage. It's the opposite, right? So just hit the hard concentric and don't even do the eccentric. That's why you see powerlifters do a deadlift. They lift up, they let it go, because they don't need to spend time there. It's just going to use a lot of muscle damage, which they don't need to do. And yeah, I wanted to leave that there, just to talk a little bit about the basics, because I forget that we ignore those sometimes. But most people just say, let's slow it down on the way down, but that's why you should slow it down on the way down. And I hope that makes sense to you guys out there, guys and girls out there. So yeah, if you enjoyed the podcast, tag Bridging the Gap, we'll get you up on the story, leave a rating, and at Bridging the Gap podcasting on Instagram, at Josh Bridgman. Hope you guys are well. We'll see you soon. Bye bye.